Well, Rohan, it's absolutely amazing to see you again. I feel incredibly honored to be asked to guest interview you on this podcast. Just seeing the news about you, just following your career throughout all these years, which we started together so very early on, has been a pleasure and a privilege. So thank you for accepting the invitation to be on the podcast.
No, thank you. It's always fun to be catching up with an old friend and certainly a globally renowned musician, industrial engineer, and entrepreneur like yourself.
Well, I think that we have a lot of interesting conversation ahead of us, particularly along the lines of how we both started industrial engineering and how we've ended up in such really different, amazing sort of globally impactful positions. And I'm blushing a little bit. If anybody's seen the video that you're calling me world renowned and all these things, I really appreciate that. But we're here mostly to talk about your news. Rohan, you were named the co-director and chief scientific officer of the Bezos Center for Sustainable Protein, which is quite the incredible piece of news. What an incredible honor and testament to your achievements and leadership and contributions to the field. First of all, congratulations. That is absolutely incredible. Could you tell us a little bit about what the goal for the Center for Sustainable Protein is?
Sure. Where do I start? Because I have a lot to share about the center and the role industrial engineers can really play in this field very broadly. What I would characterize the center as very broadly is something at the intersection of engineering and agriculture. The problem we are trying to solve is really a long-term problem of food security. So look at where our global population is today and where we will be in another couple of decades. We'll have about 10 billion people. And as the population increases, so does the need for nutritious food. And among the different macronutrients that we need, proteins are really critical for health. The challenge is as the population grows, we need to create more protein, but we don't necessarily have all the resources, the land, the water, also looking at the climate impacts of agriculture when it is done traditionally. So, what we really need is new technologies to complement the existing technologies and traditional animal agriculture and plant agriculture. So, through this center, we are going to develop new enabling technologies that the industry can then use to develop proteinaceous food products. These proteins, these technologies that we will develop, they will look at plant-based meats. You are aware of some of the products currently on the market, such as the Impossible Burger. That's just the beginning. It's a big industry that's emerging around it. The center will also look at fermentation made proteins. You can use fermentation processes to create enzymes, proteins, and even other flavors that go into food and make it more tasty, give texture to the food and other good attributes. And thirdly, making meat using animal cells. So you don't have to grow an entire animal. You can take cells from chicken or cow and use that through biotechnology to create meat that looks, tastes, and ideally would have the same safety and nutrition as the meat that we eat today. So really broadly, the center is about working together with the community, with industry partners to address the problems that are facing this emerging industry today, allow it to scale up, understand the consumers and what the consumer needs are, and connect the consumer needs with industry product development and fill that gap in enabling technology in between. And so the hope is through everything that we will do, we will stand up a new industry that will continue to grow. We will be able to create options for consumers through all these joint efforts. And certainly the awareness about some of these technologies. And anytime there is a new emerging technology, there are always concerns. We don't necessarily understand the safety, the longer term implications. So our Bezos Center will do research that will help address some of those scientific questions. I'd also like to highlight along the way, as we develop technology, as we support industry, the other big resource is the human resource, the human capital that needs to be developed. And the center will provide opportunities for students, right from community college students to undergraduates, graduates, even postdocs, to work in a team environment, in an interdisciplinary environment, to learn the skills to get through professional development that will ultimately help them in their careers and ultimately help the industry find the right people to accomplish production of these proteins.
Wow, that is just really incredible, and so it's amazing to hear that your career has led you to a path that is such potential to be globally impactful for science, for the population, just everything from everyday people to people pursuing their studies to the entire industry. So again, just congratulations. So you ended up in this field of research actually through medically based tissue engineering. Is that
That is
correct?
that is right. So throughout my career as an industrial engineer, starting with my academics, I've always chosen to focus on more non-traditional problems, certainly non-traditional for our profession, but with the ones that we can really make contributions and sort of have opportunities to grow as a profession. During my PhD at Penn State, for example, I worked on medical implants and to address problems around infections associated with implants. So I developed some technology working with the team there. Later, once I became a faculty at NC State, I started my career and spent a good part of the first decade of my career looking at bioprinting and other technologies to make tissues and organs for replacement or drug diagnostics or other applications like these. And last few years, even before the Bezos Center came about, I decided to diversify my portfolio. I was very interested in food. Just personally, I love food, but also recognizing the problems that are associated with nutritious food, not just today, but in the long run. And scientifically, if you think of it, a lot of the products that we are talking about that we'll enable through the center, meat made out of chicken and beef, for example, they are really tissues. I mean, that's what it is, right? That's what meat is. And so a lot of the skill set and the tools and technologies that I've been looking at for medical applications can translate very well here. However, as an industrial engineer, you also have to recognize the differences in constraints, right? The consumers are different, the economics is different, the supply chains are different. And so that's why I find this field fascinating, where I can still use some of the skill set and knowledge I've developed over the last decade, but there's so much new to learn and apply in a very different context as well.
You touched on it already a little bit about how you started getting into you started this path sort of in your PhD, right? You became interested in alternative paths. And something that I was thinking about when I was preparing for this interview, and we talked about this during my interview as well. A lot of people end up doing something that they really set out to do, right? So you went to school to become an industrial engineer, you studied this. Um, a lot of people a portion of people end up doing what they intended to do. A lot of people do not. And the rate at which technology is advancing is rapidly increasing, right? So there are so many people out there who are doing jobs today in science and otherwise that didn't even exist when you were a kid, when you were in college, when you were an undergrad and PhD. Did you ever imagine that you would be in a role like this, doing, working on research projects that are of this topic?
No, not really. I mean, if I look back when I graduated from Penn State as a PhD student and joined NC State, that was back in 2011. I never envisioned I would be where I am today and doing what I'm doing today. I think it's just a natural evolution of things. Some of it just has to do with my interest and really what I've been through my career is jack of all trades and master of very little. But that's something I enjoy. I enjoy the breadth of things. I enjoy new challenges, exploring new opportunities, certainly looking at new scientific problems. And so this is one of those really, Cassandra, it's just one thing led to the other. What I will say, I think what I have enjoyed in my career is taking risks sometimes. This was definitely a risk where I had to get into an area where I literally knew nothing about other than the fact that I like food. And so there was a lot of learning along the way as well. And while you're now aware of the Bezos Center, there were several efforts that were unsuccessful in the last 3-4 years in trying to build an ecosystem and receive research funding or build this large community around this topic. But that part is also, I think, the fun part for me. I like to get into the unknowns. And I truly do think as industrial engineers that we have the ability to think at a systems level, ability to connect problems with solutions, and the tool set that we have is so broad and so diverse. And so it gives us a really good backing, a really good foundation to leverage. And so sometimes it's just about looking at opportunities. And I'm sure, in your career and how your career path has evolved and is so non-traditional, you've been so successful. You've probably leveraged some of the same things and shared experiences around taking risks and sometimes making those decisions and sticking with them and then doing your best, hoping that you will be successful and working hard. And in the end, you are.
Everything that you're saying is really resonating with me. And I'm sure, I mean, you know that about me. We've been following each other's paths for a long time. We met when I was an undergrad. You were a PhD student, right?
That is right.
I was allowed to hang around the research group. They allowed the younger student, and you all were quite gracious and welcoming to me. I have to say, it was a really positive experience for me. I was treated with kindness and hospitality in the research group, even as the kid, which is exactly what I was at the time. It sounds like one of these things, and this is what I've experienced in my life, and what hearing this news about you and hearing you speak about it sounds like something that has been a guiding principle in my life, which is that the unexpected can be unexpectedly better than you ever imagined, right? So being open to new possibilities, new horizons, being willing to take risks and do something non-traditional might lead you to something that is leaps and bounds better than what you could have imagined for yourself 15 years ago, for example.
And I'll add to that and say, Cassandra, I think it's some of it is also when you make decisions. If you believe in yourself, if you believe in the topic, the idea, I think being persistent and not being discouraged by early failures, because more often than not, there are going to be failures, right? Very few people are going to do very well in the first thing that they pick. So I think some of that being resilient is also important, especially if there are students on here who are really thinking about crazy ideas and really pursuing non-traditional careers. They already have ideas. Yes, it might be scary, but if you believe in yourself, if you believe in that mission that you have thought about, then I would say go for it. And if you really do end up failing and at some point deciding to change the path, that's okay too. I think there is just so much that you learn along the way. This center, came about now in 2024. I have been working just very broadly on large center level efforts for the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years. So it took a while to be successful. A lot of it, I think, was even through the failures. I learned quite a bit, and every time you fail, you just learn, you make improvements, right? And so eventually, when the time came for this one through the Bezos proposal, this was really based on a competitive global proposal that we wrote last year. A lot of the lessons that I've learned along the way, I think, were very, very useful. And I'll tell you this, Cassandra, some of this started when I was a PhD student back at Penn State. I think the ability to work in interdisciplinary teams is huge. When you talk to others across fields, initially you are not talking the same language, and I don't think that should be discouraging. If you really put in some effort and learn about the language and the problem, that's where I do think today, in general, you can make an impact anyway. Problems that exist, don't classify them as industrial engineering problems or chemical engineering or food science problems. There are problems. And I think the best way, the most effective way to tackle them is to work through multidisciplinary teams. At our Bezos Center, there are about 25 to 30 researchers that we have across domains. I mean, we have somebody with expertise in education, pedagogy. We have groups of people with expertise in consumer behavior, certainly several different engineers looking at the more process side of things, the application of AI side of things. We have people with the broadly food chemistry backgrounds. And it really does take all of these heads to come together to try to solve problems in a meaningful way.
That was always something that really stood out to me about industrial engineering. I didn't start out as an industrial engineer my very first semester at Penn State. I'm actually curious to hear about what your path as an undergrad was to becoming an IE. I I didn't know what it was at the time. I ended up being lucky that I was through a Society of Women Engineers. I was paired with somebody who happened to be an industrial engineer, and she explained to me what the field was, and it really sounded to me like the liaison between all the worlds. Like I felt like I would be able to get the skills to take that multidisciplinary approach that you're talking about, which is just incredibly that's incredibly important no matter what industry you're in, full stop. It has nothing to do with science, has nothing to do with engineering, business, music, personal life. Let's be honest, it's about, you have to be able to work with a team and solve multifaceted problems all day every day. So I've said for a long time, my engineering degree, while incredibly valuable, was mostly a stamp on my forehead that I would be able to tackle and solve a problem. And, of course, this podcast is called Problem Solved. So we're right on target for the marketing department is is giving us a big thumbs up right now. But, that's what you're saying is really speaking to me. To that point, why was it that you ended up starting in industrial engineering? That
Uh,
like first day one of class, what was it?
So day one of class was taking courses in manufacturing processes and systems with Dr. Paul Cohen and Dr. Rick Wisk. That was
Yep.
my one of grad school, at least. Well, how things came about, I pursued a bachelor's in production engineering back in Mumbai. I was in the DJ Sanghvi College of Engineering. And during, I think, I don't have a good answer to why I majored in production engineering. I really don't. But as I started, I think that the beauty of design, the ability to design things and actually make things, and I really enjoyed courses in the lab and on the shop floor, on lathes, making things. So pretty quickly, I think I love the major that I chose and I stuck to it. Also, I think production engineering is sort of equivalent of industrial engineering in the US, at least when I was an undergrad in India. And so the lot of elements of management, the human side, human system side of things, I was also exposed to that. And so it was very natural for me to pursue something in industrial engineering. Why I came to start graduate school in the first place, again, I don't have a very fancy answer. It was really because most of my friends were doing the same thing. So I really thank my friends and my friend circle and the peer pressure that got me to continue my education and doing my master's. And after I came to Penn State for my master's, I was never exposed to research as an undergrad. It was really during grad school, my first year of grad school. And I really loved the experiences. I also did industry internships along the way during my master's and my PhD, and I loved working in the industry on the problems. But always, I think through those experiences, 5, 6 months later, I always realized I was very happy to go back to school and continue doing research. So that did inform my decision to join into academia. Again, I don't think I ever woke up as a high school kid saying that is the career I want to pursue. It's again one of those things that's an evolution that happened through the experiences at Penn State.
Was there a particular turning point in your career, that a moment that you can identify that you that was you either had like a big mental shift in your approach to your career, or maybe it was the time that you realized that you wanted to branch out into alternative fields, the medical field, some influence on you, something like that?
Several influences. I think certainly my PhD advisor, who also Dr. Rick Wisk, throughout his career just worked on numerous diverse problems. And what I really liked about him is he got into problems he knew nothing about, and through students and colleagues, really caught up, learned, and sort of helping. So that was very influential. When I was at that point between my master's and PhD, one of Dr. Wisk's students, Tom Fuller, who's a very good friend of mine now, he actually started medical school, but really didn't enjoy it that much. And he came back to get his graduate degree in industrial engineering. And so I had a lot of intersections with Tom, and that's really when I started learning about biomedicine. I had no connection to medicine until that point. So I think through these interactions with Dr. Wisk and Tom, and they had a large group of colleagues as well that I got embedded into. So it was really, I think, through these experiences that I sort of loved the field. Then I developed the problem and sort of working on my dissertation. It really wasn't until my last year of PhD that I decided to pursue a career in academia, and there was a turning point, and that was being able to teach a class. So I still remember Dr. Chandra emailing me, Dr. Jaya Chandra, many of us know him, about an opportunity where some of the faculty in the department had moved on to other jobs, and there was a popular course. This was in micro nano manufacturing. And I had taken that course. My research was broadly related to it. And so he asked me if I would like to teach it. And I jumped on that opportunity. And just, I think, as a final year PhD student, I realized I love teaching, but also the interactions with students. And that's something I've enjoyed and continue to enjoy till date. Even currently, while I co-direct the Bezos Center, I'm not giving up my teaching. I'm still going to teach an undergrad class, primarily or capstone projects, which are industry-based projects. That's something I've done for many years at NC State, and that's something I am going to continue. I'm also going to teach an elective class around my research, which will have both graduate and undergraduate students. So I think that's an important element that got me to pursue academic careers, and that's something that also I look forward to in my current job.
That's really incredible. I want to take a little bit of a shift here. I think, the way that I'm not surprised that you're so passionate about teaching, and that you found a lot of fulfillment in guiding other students, and actually, like, that you're saying that you don't want to give up teaching, even that undergrad class. That sounds really, what a cool opportunity for those students to hang around you. I'm not surprised because, as I mentioned earlier, you in particular, the whole research group, but you in particular were really welcoming to me as the younger kid in the back of the bus, whatever it was you want to say, on the field trip through graduate school, and so that was always really encouraging to me. And as I was deciding to make my change from going from traditional IE to I went into technology consulting right after school, and I had a lot of um, turmoil about what my path was going to be. But whenever I kind of came out and said that I wanted to be a musician full time, I received a lot of support, and from my former colleagues from Penn State, my colleagues at work. I've always had the impression that you and some of the other people in the research group are really proud of what I've done,
Absolutely.
and that I made those changes in my life. And I took that as a sign that what I was doing was positively impactful to the world around me, because I looked at you and I said, these guys are doing actual, real life-changing work in the medical field, working on growing tissues, heart tissues, actually going to save lives. I'm a fiddle player and they're proud of me. This is saying something. And it gave me a lot of self-confidence to go ahead and have that radical self-belief that you were talking about and understand that we can all, through our different paths, make a positive impact in the world. That said to me that I was making a choice with my life that was going to make a positive impact in the world around me. Your opinion of what I was choosing was very important to me at the time. So first of all, on a personal note, thank you for that. As I progressed throughout my career, one of my personal missions has become to encourage everyone to find a path in their daily life that they can experience feelings of alignment and fulfillment, and and through that make a positive impact. Because I'm an entrepreneur now, but I was a touring musician, and I felt that I through that leaving was what was traditional engineering, and going to that made me feel that I, was doing something that would make a positive impact in the world. And I think it's through that alignment and fulfillment. It's leading with that makes you positively impact the people around you. Now we're talking to you today, and you have this very unique seat in our society where you have the opportunity to truly impact the world, truly impact a lot of people, truly impact the future. And we talked about the details about what you're going to do, but I really want to hear from you. How does it feel to be working on something that has such huge potential for global
Uh,
impact?
it's very exciting. That's something I'll tell you. In the last 3 or so months since our center was announced, every day I'm learning something new. Sometimes it's new related to science and technology, where I'm learning about a new type of process or some new phenomena in bioengineering or something to do with a new material like a farming technology. And then the other days it's learning about legal stuff and IP stuff and some of those more administrative portions of the job. And again, I think I'm at a point in my career where there's diversity of tasks that I have to do. Really, the variety of stakeholders that I have to work in through the center. We are working not only with some startup companies and entrepreneurs, but also some of the larger global companies. Through the center, as we develop technologies, there's potential for students and faculty to launch their own startups as well, right? So it's so many different things that I'm able to touch and learn along the way, and that's really what I think makes this very exciting for me. And I have to tell you, sometimes it does make me nervous, the responsibility that I will have. But I think I look more so than anything to the opportunity. And again, goes back to trusting yourself. And as long as you know you believe in the cause and you believe in what you've done so far in your career, I think I use that, I leverage that to look forward to every new day and the challenges that are going to come along the way through the center.
What would you, what advice would you give to a younger engineer, an industrial engineer, actually any student who wants to find that a fulfilling path like we've been talking about, and find that alignment and impact in the world?
That's really a tough one to answer. Let me share maybe a few different thoughts. One, I think I would say is find good mentors. That is certainly something that has benefited me throughout my career, and mentors can come in different ways, shape, or forms. Just the conversations you have with different people, right? And it doesn't always have to be a professor. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody you work with every single day. I think the relationships that you build and the advice that you can get from people from different walks of life, I think that is very, very important. So your circle is key. I think also that working towards identifying your passion, I do think where you can make real impact is on things that you're passionate about. And so using the time in school, right? You're still young. I mean, I used to think when I was an undergrad and even in grad school, I was old and I had all these life experiences. Certainly did not. But I think recognizing, just coming from somebody who's much older now, that you're still young, there is still time to even fail. It's okay to fail, and just I think realizing that while you identify your passion and move along that path is very important. And I think broadly in whatever you do, my advice to the younger people is also figure out ways to give back and contribute to the society, to your profession. That I think aspect is very, very important. It's also very satisfying. Uh, and so, yeah, hopefully those 3 points will help our younger folks listening to the podcast.
Well, your journey has been very inspiring, and I love seeing people um, find that path and alignment. And one thing I'd like to mention, just to tag along onto that advice to people that you've given, which was really eloquent and helpful, is that we do have time, and what you want to do might take a long time. So you mentioned that you've been actually working on this for 7, 8 years, I think, and this started with a grant proposal over a year ago, right? And it's like we all see the news. We see the headline, "Oh, Rohan has been named the chief scientific officer." You think it happened overnight, right? But it's actually been such a journey and such a long process. And not only do people have time, people have more time than they think, things take longer than you think, right? And so it's all about the unfolding and continue on that path with what I would name for you is what I call radical self-belief. You believe in the cause, you believe in your ability to contribute to the cause, you believe in your ability to solve problems, you believe in your team, I'm sure, um, and that things are going to work out, whether you have a daily failure or whatever.
Yeah, I think that one of those last things that you said, Cassandra, that is so key to realize. It truly, for a lot of good things to happen, it does take a village. You always, I mean, you have to, I think, recognize if you are building relationships and networks that you are not the only one responsible for solving the problems. You have to build a team, you have to trust their abilities and trust that, they are there, they are going to work with you. So it's not a single-handed responsibility. And so some of that also comes with putting together the right people and working with them closely and, building friendships. It's not always only professional relationships that will get you there. I think building friendships along the way is very key. So support of everyone around you, whether it be family. My wife has certainly been so supportive. My parents continue to be so supportive. I'm an older gentleman now, but my parents still encourage me and support me in all the things that I try to do. So all of that I think plays a big role. So sometimes you may feel pressured. This is my passion. This is what I want to do. I think just looking around and building that community and getting support from that community is equally important to advance your career and be successful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that, as you as you mentioned that the friendships, I think a lot about how we've stayed in touch over the years, and a lot of, there's a handful of people who are really important to me from my undergrad years that I've stayed in touch with who've progressed in their careers in such incredible ways, such as yourself. And something that lets me lead my life with confidence is knowing that I could call you and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Whether it's on a personal level or a professional level, I'm having this problem. My own radical self-confidence is my radical self-belief is bolstered by that, really, by knowing that I can call on friends who could contribute to helping solve my problems too. And that's something that's worth its weight in gold and more. So I want to thank you again for being a person like that to me, to your students, to the community, actually. And so
Ah,
thank you.
and maybe Cassandra, it's worth sharing with this audience here the important role of the IISE annual conference in building friendships. So while there's so much technical to gain out of attending the conference, right? We had this group, you and I met annually at least once a year at that conference for a few years that you attended, and we've traveled to Disney and explored other spaces in addition to attending the scientific sessions. And so again, networking and building relationships and IISE can certainly facilitate that. So
Absolutely.
make sure students that you do become professional members as well and continue your association with IISE.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you, Rohan. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor for me to get to ask you about what's going on in your life these days. I think we are just about out of time, so I want to say again, thank you. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
It was fun chatting with you today.